Bandit Legions! God Queen Tyreen coming at you live with my brother Troy. We're streaming, you're screaming, and we're all ready to open the Great Vault. And when we do, our holy family's gonna tear the whole galaxy a new one.
To cut the long story short, I'm working on the full costume of Tyreen Calypso from Borderlands 3. This is probably the biggest monster I've ever tackled, and this thing is already taking months and it's gonna take a few more. So I figured that, I still need to train and practice on the makeup. Why not throw the stuff on YouTube while I'm at it? So that's also gonna be one of those few XP points that I need to gain along the way. So wish me luck, I hope you like it, guys. I always start my makeup with skin already prepped and contacts in, because I'm pretty short-sighted, otherwise I wouldn't be able to see much. But I'm wearing a contacts from Pinky Paradise. It's not my exact prescription, but it's much better than nothing. I would actually need cylindrical ones due to me being astigmatic, but let's say it's just outside my budget for the moment, so keep it at that. You will just see plenty of me squinting to the left, trying to see the reference picture I got there. So what you have to start with is a good base for both the whole face and the eyelids. I won't tell you the exact one is the best, because obviously everybody has a different skin type, so you probably know what works for you best, although I always go with silicone ones. I always keep in mind that I usually do cosplay makeup for either conventions or photo shoots, so that's something that is supposed to stay on your face for a couple of hours, hopefully without destroying it. But do keep in mind that this is a heavy makeup, so better prep your skin accordingly. Also, if you ever plan for going for something similar, moisturize it before and after, and make friends with good sheet masks, because those are literally lifesavers. So I pretty much have the same approach for heavily shaded makeup as for heavily shaded props. I always go for the deeper effects, so for this effect you gotta remember to use more colors that are very close to each other and sort of go for a gradient effect rather than just slapping colors next to each other, because that's gonna clash, and this is literally not what you want. If you want deeper and kinda more natural, more human looking thing, just get yourself either paints or a palette that has at least 3 colors of the same family, like for everything that you need to use. So basically, if you go for shading, you need at least 3 or 4 bronzes, some grays and blacks. So I always start from sort of the lightest colors and just go darker from there. So kind of reverse painting. As you will see in here, from the base I go with the foundation, which is both a regular one plus a theatrical one. Maroon is actually paint that can be used with both airbrush, brushes and a sponge. So this is a very good tool in here, but it serves more as a base to go over with eyeshadows of the strongest finishing colors, and then eyeliners and some grayish and black eyeshadows to make them pop. That's what I like to do to keep everything three-dimensional and sort of more lifelike, if you will. That's probably purely a matter of taste, but usually I just like to layer my colors and that's it. I will probably repeat this any chance I get, but eyebrows are actually probably the most important thing about shaping the face in general, especially for fictional characters. It makes literally 40 if not 50% of the expression on the face. Also, when you start from them and shape them in the right way according to what you're going for with the reference picture, it's going to be so much easier with the rest of the eye. So this is sort of like the frame for the whole picture that we're trying to paint here. Very useful tip for any cosplay makeup in general is always start from the top and just go down from there, because just in case if you mess up anything, you won't have to redo something that you already spent time on. Just not worth it, guys. Honestly, I usually just get confused whenever I see someone just doing a full face of foundation or something like this and then move on to eyebrows and eyes. I'm like, guys, there's fallout from eyeshadows, especially on heavier makeup like this, so just be kind to yourself. That really saves up on a lot of possible frustration, and you're not just going to be afraid of making mistakes, because they are bound to happen, and that's just so much easier and faster to come back and do a small correction wherever needed. I'm pretty sure that most people that do cosplay, doesn't matter if it's as a hobby or, you know, like more professionally, most of us don't really have that much money to spend on like super high-end brand eyeshadow palettes, so there's bound to be some fallout on this. And honestly, guys, really don't need very expensive products to do very cool stuff with them. Actually, just make sure to grab yourself a good working base, and it doesn't matter if it's, you know, an eyeshadow palette from a drugstore or a convenience store, because you really don't have to spend much on that. There's plenty of very good pigmented palettes that you can spend around like €10 or less on, and that's gonna work perfectly fine. And to be honest with you, the palette that I'm using was a present from a friend, so I have zero clue how much does it cost normally. And thank you so much, Alex, because that's obviously helping a lot, and for all the pointers and being a terrible enabler, because thanks to you I'm actually starting to do this stuff in front of a camera, so thanks, boo, very much appreciated. That's my first take on Tyreen's makeup, although I've been following a couple of people that's been in the Borderlands community for a while, and let's say I've been observing different styles, how people do this on themselves, and trying to figure out what would be a good and comfortable way for me. So this is literally second Borderlands makeup I'm doing, and the first one for Tyreen. So let's say the idea in here is not to look racist, but to look like a lighter person just burned by Pandora's sun. Like, you know how it is, guys. She's obviously a bit darker than me, although in the game it's not specifically mentioned who was Calypso's mom. We know the father, he's obviously white, although, you know, we have no clue about the mom, so it's kinda open for interpretation, I suppose. So it's either just, you know, the kids that spent way too much time on a desert planet, or people of mixed race, although whatever the outcome is, I just want to pay my homage to the character, so please don't slam me for making myself a bit darker, okay? Truth be told, I kinda wish I was able to tan at least a bit, although my skin just refuses to do it for some reason. Also, I have plenty of tattoos, so I'm not going out of the house without a very strong SPF filter usually, because I really don't want to ruin the hours of work really great artists put into my skin, so makeup it is. Also, a thing with sculpting the face shape with eyeshadows is that it's gonna look very wonky unless you blend it well and or go over this with another tiny layer of the face paint or foundation that you've been using as the base. It really helps to sort of subdue the color and make it blend with the skin much better. A good sponge or a blender is a total must when it comes to this type of makeup. Otherwise you're gonna end up looking like this thing that I see very commonly that can be described as someone just getting one brush in Photoshop and just like doing a line on their face. I mean, Technically, it's also face shaping, but you don't want to look like this in the open, boo. Trust me, you don't. And you can't exactly put Facetune on your face while you're on a convention and people see you in person, so blending is the key. Important thing about incorporating in or blending in the hairline that you're going to have, especially on heavily stylized things like this foam wig in here, is that also remember to actually shade the edges around it, because it just like blends with the face much better this way. Don't forget about the fact that usually everything in Borderlands has, well, a border, right? Haha. So anyway, do remember about that, guy. If you want the thing to be an actual part of your face, not just one of the patches slapped together. We want this to match with everything else. So the whole makeup took me over 2 bloody hours, so even sped up quite a bit. I have quite a lot of time to fill in here, so maybe I should just tell you a story. Well, like, the idea of making this video was basically to just hype myself up a bit more for continuing and finishing with this costume, because the unholy amount of details on this is literally driving me up the wall, so please send memes. Don't get me wrong, I really love her and love the design. I really wanted to do this. I wanted to tackle this to see how far I can go with my patience, although at this point I needed a bit of a break, and to actually see if that will make sense on me as a person. I'm kind of very worried every time I'm working on a project if the character would actually fit me, because you know, you always want to do your best, right? You want to look as the exact depiction of the character and all that stuff. Or maybe I'm just too old school or something, but I also compete for stuff like EC or SEG, so I always want to do my best and basically the better version of myself and all that. And sometimes it is quite mentally taxing, because big builds take time, take money, and sometimes you will need either a distraction or booze to be able to continue on with this, because concentration, that's what I'm sometimes really struggling with, especially if something's prolonging itself for very long times. So what better way of distracting yourself from one creative project than with another creative project? Maybe that's something that I actually needed, who knows? Maybe there are actually people that are going to enjoy me babbling about random shit in here, or are going to be amused by the fact that sometimes I have to stop and think for a second which hand I'm actually supposed to use for something, because apparently I'm sort of ambidextrous. Well, my left hand is the more dominant one, although there are things that I can't do with my left hand and there are things that I can't do with my right hand. So for example, regular scissors for people that are right-handed, although I can't draw or write for shit with my right hand, so wouldn't be fun if I broke any of those. So to sum up, whenever I do something creative or whatever that needs my hands, I'm kind of having those moments of confusion, which is probably nothing new. It kind of sounds like my life, that I'm like just confused a lot. But hey, I made it to 27, almost 28, so we Gucci, guys. Okay, so for the face scars, I wanted to try something that doesn't involve collodion and prolong the process even more, because it's just a test this time. Although I used a lipstick palette that I just got on my face with a brush, then went over this with eyeshadows, and then added the sharp cartoonish outline with eyeliner. While editing this video, I realized one thing, and I'm actually starting to slowly prepare myself mentally for the fact that I will actually have to shorten my nails for this costume. And yeah, I just got so used to having them longer for over a year now. Like, naturally I am unable to keep them this way because, you know, I craft a lot of things. It's very easy to damage them either with a Dremel or just, you know, stuff happens. But I got so comfortable with them being longer after starting to go to a salon more regularly, and honestly, just looking at them makes me happier. It's like one of those things, because if you do a lot of manual stuff and look at your hands all the time, it really helps when they just look better. I mean, maybe it's just me, I like aesthetically pleasing things, but it definitely makes me happier, and now I'm gonna have to make this little sacrifice for this costume. And that's probably my favorite part of any cartoonish makeup, just putting on the finishing touches with eyeliner. I usually use between 2 and 4 different ones, because I always want to have different type of strokes and different widths of the lines that I can get. And I'm not a big fan of cream eyeliner for anything other than eyes, so I usually just get different pen ones. And just, you know, look at the reference picture, have fun, go wild. If you screw something up, who cares? You can always either correct this or just add more, because having a bit too much than a bit too little is usually the better option in this case. Also, super important step to pretty much any makeup, but especially the heavier ones. Don't forget about your ears, guys. Like, I'm not a very big fan of applying this myself, but it really stands out if you shade your whole face and forget either the neck or them. It would kinda look like the game didn't finish rendering on your head, so please don't. Just bear with it. Also, obviously, please don't forget about the setting spray, because with this as a cherry on top, this makeup is kinda bulletproof. Maybe would have a problem surviving with the actual 30+ degrees, although otherwise it should be fine. So as you can see in here, I'm only gluing on the front of the wig, because it's just for a test, and fitting the back of it would actually take me using heat on this, which usually would be just a hairdryer or something like that. Although this was definitely not worth it just for a couple of pictures at home. Although I'll definitely need to do this before I wear this on a convention. Although good thing is that in here I don't have to be too stressed about this, because the costume has a high collar. So just in case if something does come off because it's too hot or something like this and Mastix doesn't wanna hold, I'm covered from the back, so hehe. Also, to close everything off, I will throw in a couple of pictures of Borderlands stuff that I did before, as sort of practice, and parts for the full Tyreen costume. Because honestly, I was sort of freaking out about both this Eva foam wig and the makeup at first. So I decided to go for something maybe a bit lighter first. So I tackled Reese from Tales, as this is my favorite installment from the whole series. Well, one of the two, because I can't decide between Tales and Borderlands 2. So Atlas wreath, if you will. That's been done before I got the ring light, so obviously the picture is much worse, so it wasn't exactly easy to capture that makeup. Although I think it's not bad for the first try. But I will obviously practice more, and that same goes for the props and everything. Although if you guys are interested in this type of thing, you can follow me on Instagram or other social media listed in the description. Although Instagram is sort of my main medium right now, as it's probably just the most fun to be there as a cosplayer, to be honest. So thank you very much for your attention, guys, and until the next time.
Oh, and if there's any vault hunters watching, don't expect mercy. I'm not that kind of god.